Hello, friends. This will be the last of 5 videos on a series about the night watch. What the night watch is that time of intercession from midnight to 6 a.m. And at least for Cochise County, how we organize that here is we break those hours up into 2-hour shifts. So we have people from midnight to 2 a.m., 2 to 4 a.m., 4 to 6 a.m. who will take a shift and worship through that time and or intercede, pray. And that's one of the things we discussed actually in the last video is that intercession is more than just saying a prayer. And sometimes people feel like they aren't called to intercession because they don't think they know how to pray, or they're just not that familiar with prayer. How do you pray for 2 hours? And of course, that's easy to do once you kind of become more familiar with it. But the reality is, intercession has a lot of elements to it, declaring the word, yes, beseeching and petitioning the Lord like we typically think of, but worship itself and exalting Jesus over your region, that is intercession. And so there are a lot of elements to intercession that take place in the night watch. And so understanding that it's more than saying a prayer, but why do we do it? And that's what we want to talk about here. Why the night watch? Why do we want to get up from midnight to 6 when normal people are sleeping and and go to a place of intercession? So we'll talk about some things that in some cases we've discussed a little bit before, but we're going to look at a different aspect. So the first thing I wanted to bring up was in Exodus 27. And this is the lampstands in the tabernacle. We have talked about that in some previous videos. Um, but in this case, we're going to look at what is the purpose for this. So in verses 20 and 21, the scripture says, "Command the Israelites to bring you clear oil of pressed olives for the light, so that the lamps may be kept burning. In the tent of meeting outside the curtain that is in front of the testimony, Aaron and his sons are to keep the lamps burning before the Lord from evening till morning. This is to be a lasting ordinance among the Israelites for the generations to come." Now, we've discussed the fact that in the Mosaic tabernacle, this was all very symbolic. And so the Mosaic tabernacle, the priest came in to tend the lamps. There wasn't activity during the night hours in the tabernacle. So the only purpose for these lamps burning, it wasn't so people could see to walk around. The only purpose for these lamps burning was for the audience of God himself. It's because God was there. Now, when David erected his Davidic tabernacle, he had specific revelation about some things that existed in the Mosaic tabernacle that he understood, not just the symbolism, he knew what it actually meant. So in his case, when David instituted his tabernacle, he then put worshipers, people to play instruments and sing songs all throughout the night. There was 24/7 worship in the Davidic tabernacle. Well, that was the representation. That's what that actually stood for, and what it meant was that there were those that would exist only for the purpose of entertaining God. He is worthy. That's the point. God himself is worthy of having people as burning and shining lamps to burn continuously throughout the night when there is no other audience except for God alone. We're not praying for anyone else's um, adoration, for them to think highly of us. No one's going to hear us. It's just God, and it's all for him. Now, I had had a dream. This was actually like right at the turn of the year, the very beginning of the year, or Christmas night, perhaps, at the end of 2023. And in the dream, I was in a church sanctuary, and it was nighttime, and I was praying. There was maybe two 2 or 3 other people in the sanctuary as well, and we're there in the middle of the night praying. There was maybe like some night lights, like barely enough to walk around. And there was somebody who was kind of working in the sound booth area. And I went to him and told him, we need to turn up the lights. And he was checking the regulations and the procedures to see if perhaps we were able to do that. And I had told him we need to turn up the lights because this gives the impression that there's no one here. And as I said, yes, there was 3 or 4 people there, but that wasn't the point. I wasn't talking about people. The point is God was present, and we needed to honor his presence, honoring his presence with the lights that were burning throughout the night. He is worthy, guys. He is worthy of lights, of people that will arise and worship him even in the middle of the night, not just on the other side of the globe somewhere because it's daytime. Who's going to do it in the middle of the night in your region? Who's going to worship him? He's worthy of burning and shining lamps in your city, in your town, in your neighborhood. He's worthy of that at all times. And one of the other passages that really applies to this night watch that, again, we have discussed is Isaiah 60, verses 1 through 3. Arise and shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. See, darkness covers the earth, and deep darkness is over the people, but the Lord rises upon you, and his glory appears over you. Especially when there is deep darkness over the earth. And so the symbolism of us rising in the night hours when it's literally dark, there's a symbolism in that that says, Lord, as a people, as a church, we're choosing to arise and shine in the darkness, not just this physical darkness, but in the spiritual darkness in which we live. We are choosing to arise and shine as darkness is covering the earth, because you, Father, are worthy of people who will arise and shine. You deserve to have a regiment of people who will rise and give you glory when darkness is pervading the mentality of all those over the earth. He is worthy of a regiment that will arise and give him glory and glorify him in that time period. 2023, October 7th, when Israel was invaded, I was praying that morning. And as I was praying, one of the things the Lord said to me very clearly at that time, which was pretty unusual, I would say. He said that the miracle of Hanukkah is strategy for days of war. And then he explained to me that the miracle of Hanukkah was that the lamps continued to burn. And so Hanukkah, in times of war, the oil continuing to burn supernaturally during a time of darkness and devastation was a strategy for days of war. So when we know that we are approaching war, we are already in war, but we're approaching greater levels of war in the earth, it's important that we purposely cultivate oil, that we be like those 5 wise virgins and cultivate oil, worship, intimacy, knowing the heart of the Lord with him. That is strategy for surviving the days of war, for bringing our nation through, for bringing the church through victoriously through those times of war. That is strategy. And so in those times of darkness, it's necessary that we arise and shine. Think about Song of Songs and this dream that the beloved had in chapter 5, where she said, I slept, but my heart was awake. Listen, my lover is knocking. Open to me, my sister, my darling, my dove, my flawless one. The lover then says, my head is drenched with dew and my hair with the dampness of night. And she says, I've taken off my robe. Must I put it on again? I washed my feet. Must I soil them again? My lover thrust his hand through the latch opening, and my heart began to pound for him. And I arose to open for my lover, but my hands dripped with myrrh, my fingers with flowing myrrh on the handles of the lock. And I opened for my lover, but my lover had left. He was gone. That picture right there is a call to the church to not look at the inconvenience of arising in the night, to choose to arise with the Lord when He calls us, to seek Him out, to respond to His beckoning voice, to come away with Him in the night hours. As the dream goes on, she can't find Him, so she actually goes out and she's seeking through the streets, looking for the lover. And it's important that we as the church be those now in this time period who will willingly get up and come away with the Lord and share His heart in those night hours, and be willing to go to war for our country, for our nation, for the church itself, for those children who are trapped in horrors that we can't imagine, for other nations that are kept in darkness and controlled by their government, to go to the place of intercession with our lover when he calls us away, not to look at the inconvenience. Must I soil my robe, or must I soil my feet? Must I put on my robe? Do I really have to get up? Is it really that important? And then the time comes when we realize, oh, we've missed him. We've missed him. And we don't want that. We don't want, as she says in this passage, my heart sank at his departure. Nobody wants to be in that position where you realize, oh, he was calling me and I missed it. So we have to come away with him. Matthew 10, 26 and 27, Jesus says, and do not be afraid of them. There's nothing that's concealed that will not be disclosed. There's nothing hidden that will not be made known. What I tell you in the dark, speak then in the daylight. And what is whispered in your ear, proclaim from the rooftops. We talked in this last video that there's just certain things that are revealed, certain revelation and understanding that's given in the night hours that you just don't get other times. What is the message? What's our assigned message to be able to declare in the daylight? What is that? Well, we need to come away with him when he's calling us to hear in the darkness what we are to speak in the daylight. We need to set that time aside. And then Luke 12, starting in 35, verse 35 and 36. The Lord says, be dressed and ready for service, and keep your lamps burning, like men waiting for their master to return from a wedding banquet, so that when he comes and knocks, they can immediately open the door for him. So the Lord tells us to keep watch in the night hours so that we can usher him in. What does that mean? To usher him into our family, to usher him into our city, to usher him into our generation, that we hear his plans, we hear his heart in those night hours. We're prepared, we're ready to open the door for the Lord, to open up the way, to even proclaim and declare, open up, you ancient gates, be opened up, you everlasting doors, that the King of glory may come in. See, we need to be prepared in the nighttime and keeping watch to open the door for him. There's some really practical reasons here why it's important for us to arise in the nighttime. And in the night hours, believe it or not, witchcraft and the occult and Satanism is truly actually very active, specifically from the hours of midnight to 4 a.m. They're very active. That's when they hold their church services, so to speak. There's a certain time that they do incantations, and then spiritual things are released at a certain time of the night. It just, it's just completely wrong that the other kingdom should be more active than the church spiritually at any time of the day or night. The church should always be arising and always be more active than the other kingdom. And yet, the vast majority of us sleep while the other kingdom is working to perform horrific things in the earth and to have their kingdom advanced. So if the other kingdom's going to be working in the middle of the night, well, the church should be working in the middle of the night. Now, at the same time that all that's going on, I don't want you to get the impression that the night watch and the night shift is all about warfare and fighting the occult. It's really not. I'm not saying that never happens. Most of the time, when I am aware of that going on, I just double down on worship. I spend that much more time looking at Jesus and exalting him and declaring him Lord over our region and just glorying in his glory. That's the majority of what that warfare looks like. But there's other things that happen. There's this glorious awareness in the middle of the night as you're praying that God is actively mixing new mercies for the next day. And as you're with him in that place of prayer, you're like co-laboring with him to prepare the mercies for the next day, that there's mercies new every morning. And those things are being prepared for people as they rise, that there are plans that God has for individuals, that there are surprises that he has, there's deliverance that he has. And as you pray and you share his heart, you're co-laboring with him and releasing those new mercies for that coming day. And it's a beautiful thing to be a part of. And there's this picture I get a lot, and I'm going to talk about now agreement in the night hours. So we're not the only ones, right, that are up praying, although it may feel like that. The truth is, God has intercessors that are praying. And how many times have you heard somebody say, "Oh, I was woken up at 3 a.m. this morning. I just prayed for an hour," and they don't even know why, and that's fine. I was reading one time this article from fire department, and they were talking about how to prevent house fires. Well, one of the specific things they said, which I follow, is not to use multi-wick candles. When you got those candles and they have 3 wicks inside of this candle, that you shouldn't use those. If I do happen to have one, like somebody gives me one, I'll just light 1 wick at a time. But the reason being is because they create such a fire hazard. Why? Not just because it's not like 3 candles burning. When you get those many, more than 1 wick burning in close proximity, the results are exponential. The fire and the heat that radiates out of that, and the fire potential for catching other things on fire is exponential. It's not just, like I said, 3 wicks, it's multiplied. And I hope that paints a really good picture for you of agreement in the night watch. Now, this is one of the reasons that each week, as most of us, I take 2 shifts in a week in the night watch. Most people just take 1 shift a week. And so at the beginning of each week, I'll send out a prayer focus for that week. Now we pray, most of us take a 2-hour shift. So there's 2 hours to pray. But at some point, we want to touch on this one topic. Why? So there's agreement in the night watch, so that there's multiple wicks that are burning concerning one topic. And that topic, then, it's not just like there's 3 candles burning, there's exponential heat and fire on that particular topic. So agreement in the night watch can bring about exponential results with the potential to ignite a fire, which is unstoppable, right? So I hope that that's encouraging to you. Just That is why we are willing to set aside the sake of convenience, set aside things that, yeah, it seems a little crazy, especially if you're going somewhere, if you travel to your church to go pray, if you go to a house of prayer. I'm going to my house of prayer, but it's only like 5 steps away from my home, so that's not a big deal. But you're arising in the night hour, and yeah, it seems a little wild to be missing out on sleep, and especially like a 2 to 4 a.m. shift. But there's a reason. And it's because there are results, there are effects, and just the reward of the intercessor, that intimacy with the Lord and getting to share his heart is worth it all. So I hope you've enjoyed this series on the night watch, and we will see you in the next video on whatever topic the Lord releases that. See you then.